Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Sock Talks with Joy and Sean. We're glad
No,
you're
the
on
Gratitude
today.
Movement Club.
And
Remember.
do you have your blue on today? It is one of those blue days,
Yep.
and I won't even discuss the fact that it's raining. It's not that kind of blue day.
No,
It's
beautiful here.
it's yeah, yeah. Kind of the spring is crung, it's kind of cool being here in April, and the thunderstorms came rolling through last night and more storms rolling through today, but it's all good. And
Good.
Mark is already fretting that it's going to be time to mow the grass pretty soon. And
Yeah, coming.
but what's been really fun about this season, and I don't know whether it has to be with the way the weather has happened, but the daffodils everywhere are phenomenal.
Are they? Oh,
Yeah, every place you go. I mean, and I've picked several times for vases for myself, and I usually might get two times,
hmm.
before and usually I'm hurrying before the snow hits, because we will get
And
one
then
more
freezes
snow
them.
before
Yep.
this is all over. We always do, kind of thing. But they're just so that's like bright and beautiful. I have regular flowers behind me, but I should have had my daffodils here.
Yeah.
They go good with blue.
Little springtime.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, Sean and I were talking a little bit on the pre-talk, or prepare. The most prepared that we do is not really much, right? But I know for myself, I've been going through a really, really stuck in a spot where there's so much that I feel I need to be doing. It's stalling me on getting any of it done.
Everything.
I mean, it's just crazy what's happening with, I shared with Sean with a lot of things that are coming up, important things that I should be doing right now in preparation for the 12th, preparation for my book launch on Thursday, and in preparation for a talk that I'm doing a group front of group people Monday. This is all in like in 1 week's time, and it's like because of all of it, I'm not getting any of it done. And it's just really tearing me down. And we've got this beautiful gratitude journal that I know if I can sit down and take the time to release everything and do it, it's going to help me. But
Absolutely.
I'm not even finding that time to step down and release and do that.
So then what are you doing with your time?
What
First
am I
question.
doing with my time? It seems like my mind is like racing from one to another, well, on top of that, my father-in-law who lives
Sure.
with us, as
No.
we know, his bedroom is now right outside my office door. We had to bring him downstairs. We had to reorganize our entire living
Right.
room, and make this work,
Which is huge. I
which
mean,
he's
that's,
not capable of
that's life.
downstairs.
I mean, that's, I don't want to make light of it. That's life, but it's huge. That weighs on you.
Yeah, so it's like then you hear him, it's time to get up. Okay, I gotta go jump do this, or of course me, the mom instinct, the caretaker instinct, or whatever you want to call it. It's like this room's got to look really good for him. He's got to feel comfortable there. So, you're running here to get this, you're running here to get that, so that and it probably is not going to really matter too much for him, but for me it is,
Right.
because we really had to do it. We had to like rearrange and put
Yeah.
a temporary wall kind of thing and that type of thing, just so I can get to my office, you know.
Yeah, and we all get through, we all have those moments where it's like, oh, 14 things to do, and then now you're paralyzed. And I think it's, baby steps with action. I mean, action
Yeah.
and those, and giving yourself a break, first of all. Don't, like, oh, you're not getting, don't start talking bad about yourself because you're not getting anything done.
Mhm.
Let me do that to you. No.
Mhm.
Um, but
Let
it's,
somebody else be that person.
yeah, come on. You have to be your biggest advocate. So I think it's just, all right, take a breath, prioritize. Okay, this is Monday, so I got to do a little bit on this for Monday. And then, whether it's, not 10, but if you get a couple things done with that in 15 minutes or half hour, okay, and then move that one aside. You can't obviously do all four things at one time. So, and then just a little bit of action. What should I be doing? Um,
Mhm.
and maybe the first thing is set aside time to write in the journal. You said you were on the journal party yesterday, and then you know
Yeah, I
you
was.
kind of felt the questions you were going to ask is not. it's probably going to bring the group down. I'm just trying to ask for help, but maybe this isn't the place I do it. But then you
Yeah.
said you wrote
Yeah.
in your journal pretty
Yeah, it
extensively.
was. The journal parties are really, they're inspirational,
Yeah,
and it's good to hear, different ways people do things. And it's also really good that you can contribute,
sure.
because there's always something you're doing that's going to help somebody else.
Absolutely.
And so I really felt not so good about the way things came yesterday for me at the journal party, but I'll tell you what it did do for me is wake me up. And what I did last night is I actually made a list of those things that were bringing me down. I was making a list of those, not the, opposite of the gratitude list here, folks. This was things that were really making me down. But what it did, and my intention this morning when I got up, find the quiet moments early this morning, and I took my core journal and I literally crossed one thing off at a time and reversed it to say, okay, I'm upset about, what's that I'm not getting all the invites out that I want. But let's look back on this. How many people have I really already talked to?
Right.
How many times, what can I do to get it out there with the different groups that I'm in and that type of a thing? But to what can I do to scale down and make it more reasonable instead of like I'm not getting to anybody,
Right.
kind of a thing. So my core journal really made me kind of look at each of those things. It made me realize, I'm grateful that I have people that I can reach out to.
Right.
I'm grateful that I have a social media platform that I know I can touch people. Are they all going to be one-to-ones, or one message or another? Not necessarily, but I'm grateful for that. And so I kind of like turned myself around a little bit and made it like this isn't so bad, Joy. Yeah, you're speaking on Monday night. Think about it. You wanted to be in two speaking gigs per month. Guess what? This is one of them.
Here
You
we
should
go. Yeah.
be excited about this.
You asked for it. Here it is.
Yeah, it's like you should be excited, not stressing over it, kind of a thing. So I kind of like really turned things around a little bit,
Well,
and
then
it's the
you
most I've written in my core journal from the time I got it.
you can share that next Wednesday at the journal party. Hey,
That's
here's
what
what I
I
was going through, and here's what it, and that's a deep thing, not just like I'm grateful for coffee, and it
yeah
really helped me work through things.
yeah
And you just all you did was just reframe your thoughts.
yeah
You
yeah
know, I
yeah.
don't have time. You know what?
It was you
I'm
know
making the time to
right.
invite people or work on this or show people this. So,
Right. And
um,
what I did too, and I'll tell you one of the, this will sound crazy for a lot, but we're on different subscriptions out there and grandfather did, and I'm on a plan that I get 5 cards a day.
mhm.
It's already paid for my plan. So I never want to send less than 5 cards.
Sure.
You know, that's what 150 a month, that I want to do. That's 35 a week, and kind of break it down. Well, I was stressing myself when I had those days that it was hard to do.
It happened. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so that was one of them. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to stress over that
Right.
35 a
It's
week.
okay that I just sent one card made an impact on one person.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Right.
That's
So
exactly what I
it
did.
goes back to we are our own worst complicated relationship that we'll ever deal with.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
relationship we have here is
hmm
the hardest we'll ever have.
hmm
And we have to have some grace and give yourself some breaks. And just like you did, sometimes we write down what you're feeling and going, how can I reframe that? How can I
Yeah.
just like you did? No, and sharing that to say, here's, when you feel overwhelmed with 40 things coming at you, here's what I did. Here's what I do. Because
Right.
this won't
Right.
be the only time
Right.
you feel like this.
Yeah, it really was, and when I was on the party call yesterday, there were several people that mentioned about, just breathe, take a deep breath and breathe.
Yep.
Be in the moment, be in the moment. And that's like, it's so true,
Yep.
but you just get so wrapped up in
Oh,
it,
yeah. Yeah.
when one thing doesn't get done, it goes like, okay, it's piled on the
Snowball,
next thing that has to be
snowball.
done, and all this kind of, and all of a sudden it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
I
now you have
haven't
to go
gotten
make
anything
dinner,
done.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, there's a lot that was just kind of getting me, but yeah, it is. It was just like take a breath, but it was very, very helpful for me today to do what I did in that
Good.
gratitude
Good.
journal.
Good.
And I've got a plan now that makes more sense. And it's, and I'm gonna live in the moment,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
gotta live in the
All we
moment.
can do.
We learned that a lot with my father-in-law with the dementia, I mean, every day's a moment,
Yeah.
and just live in that moment and make that moment special. And so, but yeah, yeah,
Well,
so
cool.
that was the gratitude journal, definitely, made a difference for me, moving forward. And like, I was listening to you and Amberly's TikTok today, and you were talking about just taking that deep breath and it's okay to have those moments, and
Right.
just what are you going to do to bring yourself out of them?
Right.
But when you feel, and you had a quote, I think you said on there too, like when you feel that moment where, you feel that moment where, what did you say? How did you say that? I'm trying to think what it is. You had something on there that if you feel that moment, do something. I don't know. I can't even remember now, Sean, but
Drink
yeah,
heavily.
but it's just
No, I
not
think
going to be there forever.
no. It's well, she was talking about Mel Robbins and then Gary Vaynerchuk, and both of them kind of had the same thing, like in different ways of saying it. Is yeah, and it's on, and I'll just simplify it. You have to be your own best friend,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
sometimes that's a kick in the ass, but
mhm,
most times it's a lighten up, Francis,
yeah,
you know. And I saw this thing the other day. It was an interview with he's an actor, Terry. Oh, he's the MC of America's Got Talent. He's the big guy that can,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he said, I was the worst at self-talk. Why'd you do that? Why'd you fuck? Oh, you stupid. Duh. And he goes, I was the worst. And I don't know if somebody said, would visualize your 6-year-old self. Get a picture, look at that 6-year-old self. Would you talk to that little kid like that? Would you?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's exactly
exactly.
what you're doing. And I'm like, whoa, so it's true. I mean, just, there's enough negativity and, you know, hatred and bullying and whatever you want to call it out there. Don't do it to yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Give yourself some grace. Just let's take a breath. Quit talking to yourself like that. And it's a learned behavior.
yeah,
You learn to talk to yourself that way, so you can learn to not talk to yourself that
yeah,
way. But it's
yeah,
work. It's
yeah,
work. So
yeah,
you have to catch yourself. Where's that coming from? I'm not gonna mention that anymore. So yeah, it's just us growing, I guess. So
yeah,
no,
yeah,
if you don't think you were an idiot in your 20s, you're still an idiot.
yeah.
Was it that one?
Yeah, that was a good one too. That was a good one too.
Because we can all look back.
I'm waiting for my kids to kind of realize that one.
Yeah, sometimes it takes more than just their 20s, but but it's true. I mean, you gotta laugh at yourself. You gotta, well, that was not. You can look back at your 20s and think of some of the decisions you made and went, "Whew, what the heck was I thinking?"
Yeah, yeah.
Look.
Hey, you could do that on day-to-day stuff, Sean.
Oh, I do it on day-to-day
You
stuff.
could do that. Like, what
Thanks,
was I
Joy.
thinking when I was thinking that,
What the hell?
Where was I coming from on that?
Wow,
Well,
that was
I
brilliant.
know too with the way the home is set up here in the office, it's kind of like just as we were talking, thinking, you know what? When I open that door to go out, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Just take a
And
deep
the
breath.
vice versa. When you walk into your office, take a deep breath.
Yeah,
All right, let's compartmentalize
right,
that over
right.
here. I got to do this right now. I got to focus. Let's go to work. Let's put some action in. Because once you start moving,
Yeah.
then it gets rid of all that
Yeah,
junk in your head.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was interesting because one of the things, yesterday was a big visitor day with my BNI chapter.
Okay.
And we I have done the visitor day for several years actually, but this year I turned it over to somebody.
Sure.
It's like, you know what? Because I'm on the membership committee now, you know all this and how the responsibilities fall in that group. And I said I'm gonna work with somebody else, and somebody held their hand up to do it. Well, guess what? You soon realize that hand was not. understanding what all they needed to really do. And
Yeah.
no matter how much I helped them, they still didn't do it. So a week and a half ago, it turned over to me making sure this was going to work, and have a good day. And that was very, very stressful and very, and I don't want to say animosity, but I really wasn't, I was kind of upset that this happened,
Right.
but at the same time, I wanted to keep him in the loop with things because I didn't want him to feel like, you know,
Well, Joy just took over.
anyways, so there was a lot of negative thoughts on my mind coming into this, but it was one hell of a successful event.
Good.
We had 23 out of 29 people invited,
Well, perfect.
show up at the
No,
door,
that's
which is
good.
really, really awesome. And so instead of like looking at what I went through, I have to I look at like, wow, look what
Yeah.
this
It's
look what
kind of
happened.
the
This is
thing,
good
like,
stuff.
be purposeful, not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to be, this speech need to be perfect on Monday. I don't need the invites to be perfect for next Saturday. I don't need my book launch to be perfect. It just needs to be purposeful. And then
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
that gets rid of that. What are you doing this way? Why are you doing this? Why did I do it? Well, no, I'm just being
Right.
purposeful of the invites. I'm being purposeful of making sure I have the notes for when I speak on stage or I've practiced.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's
Hmm.
perfect.
Yeah.
And it's funny, most great memories you have is it's a perfect moment, but it was something started something that, like, remember
Yeah.
that? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
um,
Yeah, yeah. And that's a very good point. It's kind of like, no matter what you do when you're talking to a group, number one, they're not going to know whether you're telling them if everything was perfect or not.
sure, right.
It's like the point is, I know the point for me whenever I have any conversation with people about it, any of the speaking on kindness, gratitude, everything, it's all like, did they walk away with a new look? They walk away with something of
You know what?
value.
Even just
Did I
one
give them value?
person in the
Huh?
crowd, even if it's just one person,
Yeah. Yeah.
that does, yeah, did I have an impact on one person when I do a beach walk talk? Does
Mhm.
one person go, huh, okay, now you're not going to get to everybody, but it's kind of that purposeful, because it'll put you in action. If
Yeah.
you think perfect, then you do freeze and,
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
And that's the way I feel about, anybody who follows me on the Instagram or on Facebook, every evening I put a quote out there,
Mhm.
on Instagram. And if it touches one person,
Yeah, absolutely.
like, oh my gosh, I needed this today, then I know I've done what I could to help
Right.
society look at life
Yep.
better, kind of a thing. So it's not about the numbers. And on our side with the newsletter that we talk about that we have access to,
Hmm.
if there's one person that looks at that and remembers something and something triggered, or they click on
You've done
something,
your job.
it's we know what emails look like. We know that people, I know what I don't look at, you
Delete,
know.
delete, delete. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, delete, 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 kind of a thing. But if there's one person that comes up to me at one point, something, you know what, I really appreciate your
Yeah.
newsletters. Hey, I like what you said last week. Oh, you
And
made
then
my
give yourself a
day.
pat on the back. And what
Yeah,
do you say? Thank you.
absolutely. You got to say thank you. You got to say thank you. Really appreciate you following it.
Yep.
So anyways, okay.
Alrighty. Well,
One day,
we've solved most world
thank you for
problems now.
joining.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining the Gratitude Movement Club.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Yeah, it's just like anything in life, you have your ebbs and flows, ebbs and
Yeah.
flows.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Up and
And
down.
like I talked on Monday, the dangerous part when you're in the ebbs is thinking you got to redo everything. You can look and say, am I doing the things I should be doing? If the answer is no, then do the things you should be doing.
Yeah,
If you're not getting the results, sometimes it's just not a good time for people.
yeah,
But to not blow it up, but tweak it, that's okay. But to blow it up and go, that's not a good thing to do.
yeah,
So,
yeah, for
all
sure.
right.
Okay,
Have a
hey,
lovely
thanks for
weekend.
listening. Like, thanks for letting me get this all
Hey,
out
I
today.
appreciate you being so vulnerable on that. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure that
So
this one's going to help some people. So thank you, Joy.
hope so. Thanks,
Yep.
guys. We'll see you next week and
Have a great weekend.
have a good one.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.